Hi, my name is Jenny Maclay, and I'm here today to talk about clarinet history. The clarinet is over 300 years old, and in its 3 centuries of existence, quite a lot has happened. We have so many significant pieces, players, and developments, but today what I would like to focus on are some of the greatest collaborations between composers and clarinetists. Now, the composers I will mention today were undoubtedly skilled beyond belief at their craft, but without the collaboration of these talented clarinetists, we would be left without some of the greatest pieces in our repertoire. First up is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Anton Stadler. You might be familiar with Mozart's name today, but maybe not Anton Stadler. Anton and his brother Johann were very well known in Vienna. Although Anton is more well known in clarinet history today because of his collaboration with Mozart, his younger brother was actually principal clarinetist of a local Viennese court orchestra, and Anton was second. Now, later on, Anton did replace his brother Johann as principal clarinetist of the very same orchestra, but there's an interesting historical sibling rivalry for you. By the end of the 18th century, Mozart had gained international fame and recognition for his performances and compositions. He was also a Freemason, which was a fraternal organization, as was Stadler, and this proved to be a bonding point between composer and clarinetist. Now, Mozart also loved the clarinet, very rightfully so, I might add, and in a letter Mozart wrote to his father in 1778, he declared, "Alas, if only we had clarinets! You cannot imagine the wonderful effect of a symphony with flutes, oboes, and clarinets." Inspired by his love of the clarinet as well as his friendship with Stadler, Mozart composed his Clarinet Concerto in A major, Case 622 in 1791. Shortly after its composition, Anton Stadler embarked upon a multi-country tour with the manuscript in tow, as well as some money that he had borrowed from Mozart. The only documented performance that we have of this clarinet concerto is in Riga, Latvia, and shortly after this, the manuscript went missing. Now, we know that Stadler continued his journey, but what we imagine happened is that Stadler, who is not very well known for managing his money, sold the manuscript as well as some other of his personal belongings. Mozart died on December 5th, 1791, and the mystery of the missing Mozart Clarinet Concerto manuscript remains unsolved to this day. However, there is a manuscript fragment which contains 199 measures of music, which was how we were able to piece together the beloved Clarinet Concerto. Next up, we'll be talking about Carl Maria von Weber and Heinrich Baermann. Now, if your teacher has you practicing out of a particular scale book, you might recognize the name Baermann, but this is actually written by Heinrich's son, Karl. Heinrich Baermann was a German clarinetist who was based in Munich, and he studied with the clarinet virtuosi Joseph Beer and Franz Tausch. In 1811, Weber and Baermann met in Darmstadt, and Weber was instantly impressed by Baermann's commitment to his craft. Heinrich Baermann was very well known for his beautiful tone and incredible technique, and many compared Heinrich to the greatest singers of his day. The first piece that Weber composed for Baermann was his Concertino, Opus 26, which was written in the span of just a few days. The King of Bavaria requested a premiere shortly after its composition, and the premiere went so well that everyone wanted Weber to write more music for clarinet. In a letter to a friend, Weber described, "Since I composed the Concertino for Baermann, the whole orchestra has gone mad and demands more concertos from me. They are pestering the king and the management." Their pestering certainly paid off, because shortly after the premiere of the Concertino, the King of Bavaria commissioned Weber to write 2 more concertos, which today we recognize as the Clarinet Concerto No. 1 in F minor, as well as the Clarinet Concerto No. 2 in E flat major. In addition to the Concertino and the 2 clarinet concertos written by Weber, he also wrote a few other pieces for clarinet, such as the Clarinet Quintet, the Grand Duo Concertant, Introduction Theme and Variations on a theme from Silvana. Heinrich Baermann and Carl Maria von Weber remained lifelong friends, and clarinetists today still know, love, and perform the music created by this wonderful collaboration. Before moving on to our final composer-clarinetist collaboration, I would like to share a fun fact from clarinet history. So we just finished discussing Heinrich Baermann, who we know by now was a very famous and talented clarinetist. His son Karl was also a talented clarinetist, and he was very skilled at playing the basset horn. The two were also apparently good cooks because Felix Mendelssohn, requested that they cook him some dumplings and strudels when all three were in Berlin one Christmas. The Baermanns agreed to this, but only if Mendelssohn would write them a piece. That piece was the concert piece number 1 for clarinet, basset horn, and piano. And the funny thing is, they repeated this a few days later, and that's how we got the second concert piece for clarinet, basset horn, and piano. The final composer-clarinetist collaboration we'll be discussing today is between Johannes Brahms and Richard Mühlfeld. Perhaps some of the greatest music in the clarinet repertoire today was written by Johannes Brahms, who declared his retirement from composition in 1891. Shortly after, he heard the clarinetist Richard Mühlfeld performing in the Meiningen Court Orchestra. Richard Mühlfeld joined the Meiningen Court Orchestra at the age of 17 and as a violinist, but he was learning clarinet and he developed abilities he had gained as a child, and he was so talented at the clarinet, by 1879 he became principal clarinetist of the Meiningen Court Orchestra, and he even received high praise from the notoriously harsh Hans von Bülow, who was a friend of Brahms. At the beginning of the 19th century, many prominent musicians were known for their dazzling technique and brilliant virtuosity, although towards the end of the 19th century there was a shift towards expressivity and creating beautiful interpretations, both demonstrated very well by Richard Mühlfeld. In a letter that Brahms wrote to Clara Schumann, he described Mühlfeld as the nightingale of the orchestra and also declared that it is impossible to play more beautifully than Mühlfeld here. Brahms wrote his clarinet trio in A minor, opus 114, as well as his clarinet quintet in B minor, opus 115, during the summer of 1891, and both works were premiered on December 12, 1891, by Richard Mühlfeld and the Joachim String Quartet. All the pieces were instant hits, and the audience demanded an encore of the Adagio movement from the clarinet quintet. After writing the clarinet trio and clarinet quintet, in 1894, Brahms composed his 2 clarinet sonatas, Sonata No. 1 in F minor and Sonata No. 2 in E flat major, which, as you might recall, were the same key signatures used by Weber for his Clarinet Concerto No. 1 and Clarinet Concerto No. 2. So these were written in 1894, and Brahms wrote these for Richard Mühlfeld and himself at piano. So they were premiered in Vienna on January 7th, 8th, and 11th, 1895, and like the earlier chamber music, they were an instant hit with audiences. The clarinet had already been well established as a great way to play dazzling technique earlier in the 19th century, but these masterpieces by Brahms really helped establish the clarinet for its lyrical and expressive playing, and very accurately represented the wide tonal colors and the spectrum of dynamics that the clarinet could achieve. Although there are countless other collaborations between composers and clarinetists throughout the clarinet's history, I believe the 3 we discussed today are the most important collaborations because they resulted in some of the most important works in our repertoire today. I hope you enjoyed learning more about the clarinet's history, and I'm excited to see what collaborations the future of the clarinet holds.